I'm losing my family because they think that I hid the fact from them that my ex now sister's husband is abusive. So, I'm Sarah. I'm 34, and my whole family's basically turning against me right now. It's hard to explain how it all went downhill, but it started with Matt. Matt's my ex, and we were together for almost 2 years. At first, he was perfect. He seemed like the type of guy who was just made to be a good boyfriend. He was always so kind, thoughtful, and I honestly thought I hit the jackpot when I met him. We met at a work event. Nothing fancy, just one of those awkward office parties where you pretend to like the small talk and hope to escape early. But Matt was different. We got to chatting, and next thing I knew, we spent the whole night just talking about everything from our favorite movies to the trips we wanted to take. I swear, it felt like we had this instant connection. And I know that sounds cheesy, but at the time, it was like everything just clicked. Fast forward a couple of months, and I'm totally in love with this guy. He's meeting my family, coming over for Sunday dinners, the whole thing. Everyone liked him. My mom kept saying, "He's such a gentleman, Sarah. Don't let him go." And my dad, who never really cared much about who I dated, actually approved. That meant a lot to me. I've dated a few guys before, but Matt was the first one my family seemed to really like. And then there was Emma, my younger sister. She's 28 now, but back then she was 26 and still living that carefree, single life. We were never super close, but we got along fine. Emma was always the outgoing one, like the life of the party, always meeting new people, always the one everyone wanted to be around. I never thought anything of it when she and Matt got along. I mean, I figured it was a good thing, right? If your family and your boyfriend get along, that's a win. Well, Christmas rolls around and Matt and I are still going strong. We'd been dating for about a year at this point, and I was really hoping he'd propose soon. Yeah, I know, maybe I was jumping ahead, but it felt right. Anyway, we had this big family Christmas party, like we do every year. It's the whole family, my parents, Emma, my brother Kevin, cousins, aunts, uncles, a full house. That night, I was running around, helping my mom with food, setting up tables, all the usual stuff. Matt was being his charming self, helping out, talking with my dad, cracking jokes. Everything seemed perfect. I was so happy. But then something felt off. You know when you just know something's not right? I couldn't put my finger on it, but there was this weird tension in the air. I brushed it off, thinking maybe I was just stressed from the holidays. At one point, I noticed Matt and Emma weren't in the room, but I figured they were just outside or whatever. I didn't think much of it until I went looking for Matt. I wanted to show him something. Probably some dumb Christmas ornament my mom kept since we were kids, something like that. I walked through the house, checking the living room, the kitchen, even the garage where my dad and uncle were drinking beers. Nothing. Finally, I went upstairs, thinking maybe he was getting something from our bags or whatever. That's when I found them. I walked into the guest room, and there they were, Matt and Emma, making out. Like, full on, not even trying to hide it. I just stood there, frozen, like my brain couldn't even process what I was seeing. It didn't make sense. This was the guy who said he wanted to spend the rest of his life with me. This was my sister, my freaking sister. I remember feeling like the air had been sucked out of the room, my heart was pounding, and I couldn't move. Then Matt saw me. He pushed Emma away and started stammering like, "Sarah, this isn't what it looks like. I mean, come on. How many times have you heard that in movies?" I was just staring at him and then at Emma, who didn't even look ashamed. She just looked annoyed, like I was the one interrupting her. I didn't even say anything. I just turned around and walked out. I didn't know what to do. Do I yell? Do I cry? I couldn't even process it. I just went downstairs, grabbed my coat, and left. I didn't care that it was Christmas. I didn't care about anything. I drove home in this weird daze, replaying the scene over and over in my head. How could they do this to me? Matt tried to call me that night. He texted me too. "I'm sorry." It didn't mean anything, all the usual BS, but I couldn't even bring myself to respond. My own sister. How could Emma do this? How long had it been going on? Were there other times I didn't know about? My mind was spinning, trying to piece it all together. The next morning, I got a call from my mom. She said she wanted to talk. I figured she knew what happened and was calling to apologize or something. But when I answered, she sounded normal. Like nothing was wrong. I didn't say anything about what happened, just waited for her to bring it up. Finally, she said, "Sarah, I think you overreacted last night." Overreacted. She went on about how I should move on and not let this ruin the family. My dad chimed in too, saying that it's not worth holding a grudge and that people make mistakes. I was speechless. They were acting like it was some minor thing, like Matt had just spilled a drink on the carpet or something. My sister betrayed me, and they were brushing it off. That was the moment I realized I was on my own. My family wasn't going to back me up on this. Matt and Emma, they were still together. A couple of months later, I found out Emma was pregnant. And guess what? My parents threw her a huge baby shower. They forgave her just like that. Meanwhile, I was still trying to pick up the pieces of my life. I didn't want to be around any of them after that. I started keeping my distance. I still showed up at family events because honestly, I didn't want to lose my parents, but it was always awkward. Matt and Emma would be there, and I'd just sit quietly in the corner, avoiding them. My mom kept pushing me to forgive them, saying, "Family comes first." But how do you forgive something like that? And now, here I am, years later, and they're blaming me for not warning Emma that Matt's abusive. How was I supposed to know? He never laid a hand on me. But apparently, that's my fault too. My family's falling apart, and I'm the one getting blamed. I don't know how it got to this point. All right. So after everything with Emma and Matt, I thought things couldn't get worse. Like, I've already lost my sister to this guy who basically wrecked my life, and I figured my family would at least have my back. But nope, turns out that's not how it works in my family. Now they're blaming me for everything that's happening to Emma. I seriously can't wrap my head around it. It started a couple days after that whole scene with my mom and Emma. I was still trying to make sense of it all when my phone rings, and it's my dad. I haven't spoken to him since the Christmas disaster. Honestly, I thought maybe he was calling to check in like, "Hey, how are you doing with all this?" But no. The first thing he says is, "Sarah, we need to talk." You know that sinking feeling you get when you just know it's not going to be a good conversation? Yeah, that's exactly what hit me. I was like, "Okay, what's up?" He doesn't even beat around the bush. He goes, "Your mom and I are really upset with how you handled this thing with Emma. You're making things worse." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I'm making things worse? So I asked him, "How am I making anything worse? I didn't even know about the abuse." And he just sighs like I'm the one who's not getting it. He goes, "Sarah, you should have seen the signs. You were with Matt for 2 years. You must have known something." I just sat there stunned. I didn't know what to say. How could they think I knew Matt was abusive? It's not like he had violent tattooed on his forehead. But my dad wasn't done. He kept going, saying that Emma's been suffering for years now, and that if I had warned her about Matt's true nature, maybe none of this would have happened. I tried to explain again that I had no idea Matt was like this. I told him that the Matt I knew was completely different, that he never once showed any signs of being violent. But it's like my words were going in one ear and out the other. He wasn't listening. He just kept saying things like, "You should have known. You were too close to him not to notice." At this point, I was getting frustrated. I was trying to stay calm, but it felt like I was being blamed for something that was completely out of my control. I told my dad, "Look, I didn't know, and I'm sorry that Emma's going through this, but this isn't my fault." But he wouldn't let it go. He started talking about how Emma's been crying every day, how she feels like I betrayed her, how she thinks I've been hiding things from her. I couldn't help it. I snapped. I was like, "Betrayed her? Are you serious right now? She betrayed me. She's the one who hooked up with my fiancé behind my back, and now I'm the bad guy?" I was shaking at this point, my voice cracking. I couldn't believe I was having to defend myself in this situation. My dad just went quiet for a second. I thought maybe, finally, I had gotten through to him. But then he said the worst thing he could have said. He goes, "Sarah, you need to stop making this about you. This isn't about what happened years ago. This is about Emma's safety, and you need to put your issues aside and help us figure out how to deal with Matt." I was speechless. I couldn't even respond. How was this not about me? Emma and Matt had destroyed my relationship, my trust in them, and now they were acting like I was the one causing all the problems. I just told my dad I had to go and hung up. I couldn't deal with it anymore. But of course, it didn't end there. The next day, I got a text from Emma. It was short, just a couple of lines, but it hit me hard. She wrote, "You lied to me. You always knew Matt wasn't right, and you kept it from me. You probably laughed at me behind my back thinking I'd fall for the same lies you did." And then she blocked me. I didn't even get a chance to respond. I felt like my heart was being ripped out. How could she think that? I would never do something like that to her. Sure, we weren't best friends or anything, but she was still my sister. I would have warned her if I had any clue that Matt was abusive, but she wasn't listening. None of them were. And then my mom called. She had clearly spoken to Emma and Dad because she jumped right into it, saying, "Sarah, we've been talking and we all feel like you need to make things right with Emma." I was like, What does that even mean? How am I supposed to make things right when she won't even listen to me? But my mom didn't see it that way. She said I needed to apologize to Emma for hiding the truth, and that maybe if I showed her I was sorry, she'd come around. I couldn't believe it. Apologize? For something I didn't even do? It was like they were rewriting history, making me the villain in this whole thing. I told my mom, I'm not apologizing for something that isn't my fault. I didn't know Matt was like this, and I don't appreciate being blamed for it. But she wasn't having it. She said, well, maybe if you didn't talk about how perfect Matt was all the time, Emma wouldn't have fallen for him so easily. That's when I lost it. I said, are you kidding me right now? You're saying this is my fault because I thought my boyfriend was a decent person? That's insane. My mom tried to calm me down, saying she didn't mean it like that, but the damage was done. I was done. I hung up and sat there in silence for a long time. My mind was racing. How did it come to this? How did I go from being the one who was betrayed to the one being blamed for everything? It didn't make sense. Nothing made sense anymore. The next day, my brother Kevin came over. He's the only one in the family who's still somewhat on my side. He said, I've been talking to Mom and Dad and they're not going to drop this. They really believe you could have stopped this whole thing from happening. I just shook my head, feeling defeated. What am I supposed to do? I asked him. He sighed and said, honestly, Sarah, I don't know. But you're not going to change their minds. And that's when it hit me. I'm not going to win this. No matter what I say or do, my family's made up their minds. They've decided I'm the villain in this story, and nothing I say is going to change that. Update 1. So after all the stuff with my family blaming me, I decided I needed to know more. Like, how did this Matt that I thought I knew turn into such a monster with Emma? I was trying to understand how someone who was always so good to me could be this abusive guy she's talking about now. I mean, I was with him for almost 2 years, and there were zero signs of anything like that. It just didn't add up. I started doing some digging. Not like full-on stalking, but I wanted to get a better idea of what was really going on between them. I talked to Kevin, my brother, since he's the only one in the family who hasn't completely turned against me. He's pretty neutral, but he's been around Emma and Matt more than I have, so I figured maybe he'd seen something I missed. Kevin didn't know a whole lot, but he had heard some stuff. Apparently, the abuse started pretty early in their relationship, like not even a year in. Emma got pregnant right away, and that's when Matt started showing his true colors. She told Kevin that Matt wasn't happy about the pregnancy. He wanted her to get an abortion, but Emma refused. That's when things went downhill fast. According to Kevin, that's when Matt became controlling. He didn't want Emma going anywhere without him, and he'd blow up over the smallest things. At first, it was just verbal, yelling, calling her names, stuff like that. But then it escalated. Kevin didn't know all the details, but Emma had told him that Matt started getting physical not long after their first kid was born. He'd shove her, grab her, and sometimes worse. Hearing all this made me sick. I mean, I've never liked Matt after what he did to me, but I never thought he'd be capable of that kind of violence. And it made me feel guilty too, because I introduced him to Emma in the first place. Like, if I'd never brought him into our lives, maybe none of this would have happened. But then again, how was I supposed to know? I wanted to get more info, so I reached out to a couple of mutual friends, people who knew Matt back when we were together. I wasn't super close with them anymore, but they might have seen things I didn't. One of them, Liz, told me something that completely threw me off. She said that Matt had always had a bit of a temper, even when we were dating. She said he'd vent to her sometimes about how I pushed his buttons and how he had to work hard to keep his cool. That was news to me. I had no idea he felt that way. To me, everything seemed fine. We had our arguments, like any couple, but nothing major. And he never once showed any sign of being violent or angry in a dangerous way. But according to Liz, there were a few times when Matt had confided in her that he felt trapped by me, like I was holding him back from something. She never thought much of it, but now looking back, she thought maybe that was a sign. After hearing that, I couldn't help but wonder how many red flags I missed. Did I just not see it? Was I too blinded by the whole perfect boyfriend thing to notice that he was actually hiding who he really was? It was starting to mess with my head. Then, Kevin dropped another bomb on me. He told me that Emma had found a secret Instagram account Matt had. At first I thought it was just him following some random girls or something. Gross, but whatever, right? But then Kevin said that Matt was following me on that account. I was like, wait, what? Why would he do that? Apparently, Matt was following a bunch of women, including me, and Emma had freaked out when she saw it. She thought it meant he was still obsessed with me or something, like he was secretly trying to keep tabs on me even after everything that happened. That's when her paranoia really kicked in. She started accusing him of still having feelings for me, and that led to more fights between them. It's twisted. The guy cheats on me with my sister, then turns around and makes Emma think he's still interested in me? What kind of messed up game is he playing? I can't even wrap my head around it. Kevin told me that Matt used to say things to Emma like, "Sarah was always a good girl, not like you." He'd make these little comparisons between us, like I was somehow better than her, and it drove Emma nuts. No wonder she's been acting so crazy towards me lately. She's probably convinced I'm trying to get back at her by messing with her husband, which couldn't be further from the truth. I want nothing to do with Matt, but he's making her think otherwise. The more I learned, the more it became clear that Matt was playing both of us. He'd treated me like a queen when we were together, but with Emma, he's this controlling, abusive monster. And now he's manipulating her into thinking I'm still in the picture, like I'm some kind of threat to their messed up relationship. It's beyond screwed up. I started thinking back to little things during our relationship, things that didn't seem like a big deal at the time, but now made me wonder. Like, there were a couple of times when Matt would get irritated over small things, but he'd brush it off like it was no big deal. I remember one time we were arguing about something stupid, and he clenched his fist so hard his knuckles turned white. I didn't think much of it back then, but now, maybe that was a sign. Maybe he was just really good at hiding his true self when he was with me. But why didn't he ever show that side to me? Why was it just Emma? Was it because I didn't get pregnant? Because I wasn't as dependent on him as Emma was? It's so confusing, trying to figure out how someone can be one way with one person and completely different with someone else. At this point, I felt like I was spiraling. I didn't know what to believe anymore. Part of me still couldn't reconcile the Matt I knew with the Matt that Emma was living with now. But the evidence was there. Emma had the bruises, the stories, and now the secret Instagram account. It was clear that Matt wasn't who I thought he was. And the worst part? There was nothing I could do. Emma won't talk to me. My parents are still blaming me. And I'm stuck in this position where I'm supposed to feel guilty for something I didn't even know about. I wanted to help Emma. But how can you help someone who thinks you're the enemy? How can you get through to someone who's convinced that you're the problem when the real problem is standing right in front of them? It's heartbreaking. I'm scared for Emma, but I don't know if she'll ever get out of this. She's trapped, and there's nothing I can do to save her. And that's the worst feeling in the world. Update 2. After everything I'd learned about Matt and the way he'd been treating Emma, I was ready to step back, cut my losses, and just try to focus on my own life. But of course, that wasn't going to happen. Not with my family so dead set on dragging me back into their mess. It's like no matter what I do, I'm always stuck in the middle, even when I'm trying my best to stay out of it. It started with a phone call from my mom. Now, you'd think after all the blame they've been throwing my way, I'd have stopped answering, but no. I guess I was still holding on to this tiny shred of hope that maybe, just maybe, they'd come to their senses and realize I wasn't the bad guy in this situation. Spoiler alert, they didn't. So my mom calls, and right away I can tell something's off. Her voice is shaky, like she's been crying or maybe she's about to start. She goes, "Sarah, we need to talk about Emma." And I'm like, "Mom, we've already been over this. I didn't know about Matt. I've told you everything I can." But then she says something that catches me off guard. Emma's not doing well. She's talking about leaving Matt. Now, under any other circumstances, this would be good news, right? Like, if Emma was finally seeing Matt for what he really is, that's the best thing that could happen. But the way my mom said it, it didn't sound like good news at all. There was something in her voice that made me feel like this was about to get even messier. So I ask her, why is that a bad thing? If she's thinking about leaving him, that's what you wanted, right? But my mom sighs and says, she thinks she has nowhere to go, Sarah. She doesn't want to move back in with us, and she's too embarrassed to ask anyone for help. I felt a sinking feeling in my stomach. I knew where this was going. She's asking if she can stay with you for a while. I actually laughed. I couldn't help it. The idea of Emma, after everything she said and done, coming to stay with me, it was so absurd I didn't even know how to respond. I said, "Are you serious right now? She hates me, Mom. She thinks I'm part of the problem. Why would she want to stay with me?" My mom tried to explain, saying Emma's been going through a lot, that she's scared and confused, and that she didn't know who else to turn to. But I wasn't buying it. If Emma wanted help, why not go to our parents? Or Kevin? Why me, of all people? The one person she's been blaming for all her problems? So I asked her straight up, why can't she stay with you and Dad? And that's when my mom dropped the real reason. She said, your father doesn't want her back in the house. I couldn't believe it. My parents had been bending over backward to defend Emma, making excuses for her, blaming me for everything. And now, when she actually needs them, they're turning her away? It didn't make any sense. Apparently, my dad didn't want to deal with the drama that would come with Emma moving back home. He thought it would be too disruptive, too stressful for him and my mom. And of course, they figured the easiest solution was to dump the problem on me. I was angry. Not just at my parents for trying to pawn Emma off on me, but at the whole situation. How did it get to this point? How did I go from being the victim in all of this to the person everyone expected to fix things? I told my mom, look, I feel for Emma, I really do. But I can't have her staying with me. We haven't spoken in months. She blocked me, she accused me of all this horrible stuff, and now she wants me to be her safety net? That's not fair. My mom tried to guilt trip me, saying, you're her sister, Sarah. Family helps each other. You can't just leave her out in the cold. But I wasn't falling for it this time. I said, you and Dad are her parents. If anyone should be helping her, it's you. The conversation ended with my mom sounding disappointed, but I didn't care anymore. I wasn't going to let them drag me back into their drama. If Emma needed help, she could go to literally anyone else. A few days went by, and I thought maybe they'd finally dropped it. Maybe Emma had figured something out on her own. But then Kevin showed up at my place. I hadn't seen him in a while, so I figured he was just stopping by to check in. But the look on his face told me something was up. Sarah, he said, you're not going to like this, but Emma's moving in with Mom and Dad. I blinked at him, confused. I thought Dad didn't want her there. Kevin shrugged. Yeah, well, he changed his mind. Mom convinced him. But there's a catch. Of course there was. They want you to come over and talk to her. Try to, smooth things over. I stared at him like, are you serious right now? Smooth things over? Kevin, she hates me. She thinks I'm the reason her life's falling apart. Kevin held up his hands. I know. But Mom and Dad are worried. They think maybe if you two talk, she'll come around. Maybe she'll finally see that Matt's the problem, not you. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. After everything Emma's put me through, after all the accusations and the blame, they wanted me to sit down and have a heart-to-heart with her? Like that was somehow going to fix things? I shook my head. I'm not doing it, Kevin. I can't. She's made it clear that she wants nothing to do with me. Kevin sighed, running a hand through his hair. Look, I get it. But you know how stubborn Mom and Dad are. They're not going to drop this until you at least try. I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell them all to leave me the hell alone and figure out their own problems. But Kevin was right. My parents weren't going to stop pushing until I gave in. So against my better judgment, I agreed to go over there and talk to Emma. The next day, I found myself standing on my parents' front porch, feeling like I was about to walk into a lion's den. I hadn't seen Emma since that day she blocked me, and I had no idea how this was going to go. When I walked inside, my mom gave me this hopeful smile, like she actually believed this was going to fix everything. Emma was sitting in the living room, looking tired and worn down. She didn't even acknowledge me when I walked in. I sat down across from her, and for a long time, neither of us said anything. The silence was heavy, like we both knew this wasn't going to end well. Finally, I broke the silence. Emma, I know things have been rough between us, but I want you to know that I never meant for any of this to happen. I didn't know about Matt. I would have warned you if I did. She didn't look at me. She just stared at the floor, her jaw clenched. I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. I'm not the enemy here, Emma. I care about you. I don't want to see you hurt. Finally, she looked up at me, her eyes filled with anger. You don't get it, Sarah. You never have. You think just because you were his perfect little girlfriend that he wouldn't turn on you too? You have no idea what it's been like. And just like that, I knew this conversation was over before it even started. Update 3. So after that whole awkward attempt to smooth things over with Emma, I knew it was time to make a real decision. I'd been dragged into this family mess for long enough, and it was clear that no matter what I did, nothing was ever going to be enough. I left my parents' house that day feeling drained, like I'd been running in circles and no one was even trying to listen. Emma wasn't going to forgive me, and my parents? They were still caught up in this fantasy that I could somehow fix everything between us. It was late when I got home, and I just sat on my couch, staring at my phone. There were no messages, no missed calls, nothing. For the first time in a while, my phone wasn't blowing up with drama from my family. It was weird. I should have felt relieved, but instead, I just felt empty. Like, how did it get to this point? How did my own family turn on me so fast? I guess I'd been holding on to some hope that things could go back to how they were before Matt came into the picture. But by now, I realized that was never going to happen. I knew I had to make a choice. Either keep letting them pull me back into their mess, or cut my losses and move on. And honestly, Moving on was starting to feel like the only option that made any sense. But of course, it wasn't going to be that easy. A few days later, my mom calls me again. This time, she sounds desperate. She tells me that Emma and Matt had another huge fight, and Emma is seriously considering leaving him for good. Apparently, she'd packed some bags and told my parents she was done. But my mom didn't seem relieved or happy about it. Instead, she was more concerned with how Emma was handling things. She was worried Emma might go back to Matt if she didn't have enough support from the family. And once again, she dragged me right back into it. "I really think you should try talking to her again, Sarah," my mom said. "She listens to you more than anyone else, even if she doesn't show it." I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was just so ridiculous. Emma listens to me? That's a joke. Every time I've tried to help, it's blown up in my face. I told my mom, "She doesn't listen to me. She blames me. There's a difference." My mom kept pushing, though, saying that maybe if I just tried one more time, Emma would realize I wasn't the bad guy and that I was only trying to help. But I wasn't falling for it. I'd already done my part. I'd tried talking to Emma, tried explaining my side, and all it got me was more anger and blame. I wasn't about to put myself through that again. So I told my mom no. I said, "Look, I'm done with this. I've tried and it's not working. I can't keep putting myself out there just to get hurt again. Emma needs to figure this out on her own, and I can't be the one to fix it for her." My mom went silent for a minute, like she couldn't believe what I was saying. Then she started crying, telling me how much it hurt to see our family falling apart like this. She said she felt like she was losing both of her daughters at the same time and didn't know what to do. It was hard to listen to, and a part of me wanted to cave in and say I'd give it one more shot, just to make her stop crying. But I knew that wouldn't solve anything. It would just drag things out longer. "I'm sorry, Mom," I said, "but I can't keep doing this. It's not healthy for me, and it's not helping Emma. She has to make her own choices." After I hung up, I felt this weight lift off my shoulders. For the first time in what felt like forever, I was putting myself first. And it felt good. I wasn't responsible for Emma's choices, and I wasn't going to let my family keep blaming me for things I couldn't control. It was time for me to move on and live my life without all this constant drama. But of course, it wasn't over yet. A week later, Kevin called. He's always been the more reasonable one in the family, so when I saw his name pop up on my phone, I figured it'd be a normal conversation. But when I picked up, he sounded stressed. "Sarah, I don't know how to tell you this, but Emma's back with Matt." I shouldn't have been surprised, but I was. After everything she'd been through, after all the fights and all the tears, she was still going back to him. I couldn't believe it. "Are you serious?" I asked, even though I already knew the answer. Kevin sighed. "Yeah, she went back yesterday. Mom and Dad are freaking out, but they don't want to push her too hard in case she just cuts them off completely." Of course, that was always the game with Emma. Tiptoe around her, don't say anything that might upset her, because God forbid she gets mad and shuts everyone out. It's like they were all walking on eggshells, just waiting for the next disaster. "Kevin, I can't deal with this anymore," I said, cutting him off before he could say anything else. "I've done everything I can. I've tried talking to her, I've tried being there for her, and it's not working. She's made her choice, and I'm not getting dragged into it again." Kevin didn't argue. I think he knew I was right, but he still sounded defeated. "Yeah, I get it," he said. "I just wish things didn't turn out like this." Me too. After that, I made my final decision. I told my parents I was going low contact for a while. I needed space from all of it, Emma, Matt, the constant drama. I wasn't cutting them off completely, but I wasn't going to let them pull me back into the middle of their mess anymore. I told them I'd still be there if they really needed me, but I wasn't going to be their go-to person for fixing Emma's problems. It wasn't easy. Part of me still felt guilty, like I was abandoning my family when they needed me. But at the same time, I knew I had to do it. I couldn't keep letting them drag me down with them. I had to look out for myself too. So here I am now, finally taking a step back. I'm focusing on my own life, my own happiness, and letting go of all the guilt that's been weighing me down. I don't know what's going to happen with Emma and Matt, but I do know one thing. It's not my responsibility to fix it anymore. And for the first time in a long time, I feel like I can finally breathe.